Does China rule the seas, that is, the South China Sea? Many countries are asking whether anything can stop China as the Asian giant flexes its muscle in territorial disputes with its smaller neighbours, from Japan to the Philippines to Vietnam. The latest incident is with Vietnam over a Chinese oil rig that's placed near the disputed Paracel Islands. This week, a Chinese boat rammed and sank a Vietnamese fishing boat near the oil rig. And in Vietnam, violent riots against the Chinese have forced Beijing to evacuate thousands of its workers. So is Asia on a short fuse to war? Joining me now from Washington is Vietnam's ambassador to the United States, Nguyễn Quốc Cường. Mr. Ambassador, welcome to the program and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me to the program.
Can I ask you first, recently you all said, China and Vietnam, that your relations were onto a much better foot, that things were going much better between you. What has happened and can it be rebuilt, this relationship?
Yes, Vietnam-China relations in the last year has been improved, but all of a sudden, China sent its oil rig and a large contingent of vessels to escort the oil rig into Vietnamese waters. And it's a serious violation of Vietnam's sovereignty and sovereign rights. And the Vietnamese people, we have no other way but to respond peacefully but resolutely.
But do you think, even if you respond peacefully and resolutely, do you worry that this could trigger an armed conflict?
Yes. You see that by first talk about the Chinese action, the unilateral action of China by sending its oil rig and vessels into Vietnamese waters is a violation not only of Vietnamese sovereignty and sovereign rights, it's also a violation of international law, especially the UNCLOS 1982, and a violation of the commitments that the Chinese leaders themselves made with the ASEAN leaders when they signed together with ASEAN leaders in 2002 the declaration on the conduct of the parties in the South China Sea, which is called the East Sea.
All right.
So, yes.
Okay, well, let me just play you something, because I spoke to China's ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Sui Tiankai. I spoke to him last week about this whole issue, and he said this about the oil rig and the islands that you claim, that disputed territory there.
We don't want to see any conflicts in our neighborhood, but it will not be entirely up to us. You see, other people have to have the same constructive attitude and policy.
Well, so that was the ambassador, but he also went on to tell me that China only has one rig here. He called them undisputed waters, and he said Vietnam has 30. How do you respond to that?
Can you repeat it? I can't hear you.
Basically, he says they don't want a conflict with Vietnam, but that China only has one rig, that these are undisputed waters, they're international waters. Mm-hmm. And he says you actually, Vietnam, has 30 oil rigs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You see that, China is creating facts on the ground by, changing the status quo. It's in the continental shelf, exclusive zone of Vietnam, not in the disputed area. So China, by doing so, China is trying to turn an undisputed area into a disputed area, and that is unacceptable. And talking about Vietnam's oil and gas exploration and exploitation activities, we've been doing it for decades, but it's in the continental shelf, in the exclusive economic zone of Vietnam, not in the disputed area, waters. Mm-hmm. So, and foreign companies, so many foreign companies are cooperating, doing business with Vietnam in the oil and gas exploration. Do you believe that they would do it if they think it's in the disputed area? I don't think so.
All right,
but, And in 2012, China also offered some bidding, international bidding for some oil blocks in the continental shelf of Vietnam, and no foreign country accepted their bidding, their offer.
I see. Well, let me ask you this then. React to what the Chinese foreign minister said back in 2010. He was speaking to his counterpart in Singapore. He said that China is a big country and other countries are small countries, and that is just a fact. That is China's then foreign minister. How do you react to that? And isn't that just a fact? They're so big and you're so relatively small.
Yeah, it's an unjustifiable argument. In foreign relations, every country, no matter big or small, are equal on the equal footing. It's international law, on equal footing. And you cannot say small countries bullying bigger countries or vice versa. Mm-hmm. Every country is equal on international relations.
But you're seeing the way China is making these claims in, for instance, the disputed islands with Japan and also with various territorial issues with the Philippines. Now, your issue has caused a lot of protests in your country, and there have been violent protests against Chinese workers. But I want to ask you, as you deal with those protests and now those people have been evacuated, how do you expect to get protection from China? Because America, while you've got relations, you're not under America's security or treaty umbrella in this regard.
Yeah, you see that, Vietnam is following an independent foreign policy. You want good relations with China, you want good relations with the United States and other countries. And, but we cannot accept the coercion, you cannot accept threats. And when the issue of sovereignty and national integrity is concerned, the Vietnamese people are very determined to defend our sovereignty rights. And no country should underestimate the Vietnamese people's determination to defend our sovereignty and sovereignty rights. For the Vietnamese, 100% Vietnamese, no matter where they live, in Vietnam, in the United States, or in other countries, we all believe that for Vietnamese, nothing is more precious than independence and freedom.
Well, we'll continue to watch. Ambassador Nguyễn Quốc Cường, thank you very much indeed for joining me from Washington.
Thank you.